Hello and welcome to a video where I'm going to shed some light on the upcoming Battlefield games. This is of course speculation, so read into it as much as you want. However, I would say that my special guest today does have a superb track record of getting the information spot on. He was 95% correct with predicting Battlefield 1, and I'm hoping he can give us some more accurate information that we can all get hyped about. So to introduce my guest, his name is Almighty Dak, and you can find his channel in the description and comments down below. We'll get right into the interview. I'm going to focus on Battlefield World War 2 and Battlefield Bad Company 3. He's going to clear up some confusion. I'll get into the live comms now. If you do enjoy this, please leave a like down below and let me know in the comments if there's anything else you want to know. Maybe he'll be around to answer some questions. If not, I'll do my best to answer them myself. So to get this interview started, could you clear up a bit of confusion? Because personally, there's been so much information that you've given me. I'm a little confused with what games we're supposed to be receiving and when we're supposed to be receiving them. So to my knowledge, we've got World War 2 and Bad Company 3. Could you expand on when we might see these games? And
Gotcha. So kind of just to clear up the confusion, not to really delve into my source or anything, but the project that he's assigned to is the Bad Company 3 project, and it just kind of made sense that would be the next one that would be out, as he was the one that was also working for the Battlefield 1 project.
Okay.
So the confusion came there, and then when Level Cap, or I think, it was probably Level Cap, who said that it's definitely not it made me go back to him and go, hey, this is you're being serious about this, right? Mm-hmm. He's like, yeah, let me reach out to the other studio and see what they're working on, because I mean, as far as he knew in that moment, it was the Bad Company 3 game that was being worked on. So he reached out to a friend he had at DICE LA. It turns out that they're working on the World War II game.
I see.
At DICE Sweden.
So what about the timescales with those? Do you have any idea when we'd receive one? Because I know we're receiving a game in fourth quarter 2018.
Yes. So we're going to receive World War II in 2018. But what he's telling me is that the Bad Company 3 game looks really polished as it is right now. So it could be out as early as the next year, and Battlefield could be switching to a yearly cycle.
I see.
Which would be interesting.
Yeah, it would be. Yeah. Well, that clears that up, because there's a lot of confusion coming out, and the only bit of official info we've got is there's a game in October 2018. That's literally all we've officially got. So this is really awesome that you can give us a little more. So for the rest of this, I've focused on 5 different topics that I feel personally are really important to the success of the upcoming Battlefield games. I think BF1 left a lot of players wanting more, really.
Yeah.
When that came out, and they've fixed it a bit, but there's bits that people are hoping will be reintroduced. So if you could go over, I'll ask you about one thing, and then you give your opinion on World War II, and then Battlefield Bad Company 3.
Sounds good.
If there's any difference between the two. So first off, let's start with player movement. What will they do with that? Will they go back to BF4, stick with what they've currently got in BF1, or is it a new thing altogether? So
since DICE Sweden were the developers of Battlefield 1, and they're the developers of World War 2, the movement's carrying on the same, although not to kind of like hop on over to Battlefield Bad Company 3, but DICE LA is working on that, and they're more familiar with the version of the Frostbite engine, which was used for Battlefield 4. So I'm certain we'll see Battlefield Bad Company 3, specifically the movement, be much more similar to Battlefield 4, and we'll see World War 2 be very similar to Battlefield 1.
Okay, that's kind of what I expected, and I think that's probably the fairest way to do it, because you get 2 separate games as well.
And they'll play in very different ways, yes, for sure.
So following on from that, the next topic I want to look at is the gunplay. Again, World War II, Battlefield Bad Company 3, will they be different? Will they be the same? Will they implement the long-awaited time to kill changes they've been on the BF1 CTE for months now, and they still haven't introduced it? I feel like that's a preparation for the next game, personally. They're kind of testing it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so is that what that is, or could you expand on that just a little bit?
For World War II, they definitely heard the complaints for the time to kill. And with the CTE that they worked on BF1, they're transitioning over to Battlefield World War II. I think what Battlefield World War II will be is everything that was lacking in BF1, especially content-wise, especially when it comes down to weapon customization.
That's pretty awesome to see, really, because that's a big complaint that everyone's always saying, I wish I could have more in the game because I've unlocked everything after, 50 hours. And BF4, I haven't even unlocked half the stuff, and I've got 2K hours on that game. So yeah. So you think with Bad Company 3, they might recreate maybe some of the Battlefield Bad Company 2 gunplay, or will it again stick with the BF1 or BF4 setting? What do you think?
Well, for Bad Company 3, since the engine they're working on is the variant that was used to develop BF4, which Dice LA spent so much time fixing through the CTE, I think the gunplay will definitely mirror BF4, but I'm sure they'll tweak it in a sort of way to make it seem a little bit more floaty. If that's the best way I can kind of describe it, how your character kind of feels a little bit more like off the ground.
Yeah, well, the movement's definitely different with BF1 to BF4, so I guess you could call it's a little more floaty. It's just a different feeling altogether. So, third one, microtransactions. This kind of links into Star Wars Battlefront 2 because EA really dropped the ball with that game. And,
yes.
Yeah, it's a good game, but it's just been ruined by that progression system
Absolutely.
that's locked into microtransactions. Are we going to get the same thing in World War 2 and Bad Company 3, or will they, not do that?
So for Battlefield, we're going back to the premium pass, so there really isn't a need to push the microtransactions that Star Wars Battlefront had. The reason they did that was because they didn't really have DLC packs that they were going to introduce in the game. It was all free content, unless you paid for the loot boxes, of course. But with Battlefield World War II and Bad Company 3, there's no microtransactions. The only things that'll be introduced through the battle packs and through what Battlefield 1 considers like their loot boxes is purely cosmetic. They're not going to move. They definitely like learned their lesson with Star Wars, but it was never even in the woodwork.
Okay.
For Battlefield.
Yeah. Okay. So it wasn't like Star Wars Battlefront wasn't like a test. They never really planned to do it anyway.
It wasn't. No. It wasn't ever a test. It was just they went into the game with the mindset that they were going to give DLC out for free, so they were going to use this to supplement the loss in DLC revenue.
Okay, well that's a very positive point from my opinion. Moving on to number 4. If you know me and my channel, you know that I'm all about vehicles in Battlefield. Like, love the vehicles in BF3 and BF4. Like, can't get enough of them. BF1 is terrible for vehicles. It's
a very bad game. But I kind of expanded on that a bit ago. A lot of the vehicle players are going to be extremely happy to be able to have not full control of their vehicles, but more control than they had in BF1. I know that the biggest concern was with the tankers who loved playing in the tanks. They didn't really get the option to maneuver and shoot unless they were in the smaller tank. But with the World War II game, we go back to the traditional tank setup where the driver ultimately has more control than he's had in Battlefield 1.
Okay. With Battlefield Bad Company 3, the setting, I think you mentioned it was going to be post-Vietnam era?
Yes, it's a Vietnam era, and it's all in contingency of the campaign, because the campaign is sort of like a mission where you have the Bad Company 3 group. They're on this like ridiculous mission. It isn't really serious, and it's post-Vietnam during the Cold War, like around the Cold War era. But you have, I don't know if it's Sweetwater or which one of the troops it is, but throughout the story, throughout the campaign, he's having flashbacks, or he's telling his squad stories of when he was in Vietnam, and that's where you play part of the campaign. So it gives DICE the liberty of having Vietnam multiplayer maps as well as Cold War era maps.
Oh, that's fantastic, because then they could even bring in almost like a massive DLC called Bad Company 3 Vietnam, because they had Battlefield Vietnam way back. So that's so many awesome options. With the vehicles in Bad Company 3, do you think they'll go to Battlefield 4 and Battlefield 3 vehicles? Because the problem I've got is competitive Battlefield has disappeared with BF1 in terms of vehicles.
Absolutely.
Unless they go back to the way it was in BF3 and BF4, there's no chance of that returning. So do you
we'll
think
see
they'll go back to that?
We'll definitely see the return of the tanks and the LAVs and the helicopters, but unfortunately there are no jets in Bad Company. The genre of Bad Company is more towards smaller gameplay, not so much all-out warfare. I guess that's what the principal Battlefield series is, which is Battlefield 3, Battlefield 4, and eventually Battlefield 5 will get around to it.
I see.
Whereas Bad Company is more about smaller gameplay.
Okay. Finally, game modes and game sizes. The Battle Royale theme has been talked about a lot. Incursions has been talked about a lot, because obviously that hasn't really amassed much just yet. Do you think that either of these two could make an appearance in World War II or Bad Company 3? And also, finally, will 64 players be the maximum again, or will they reach out to 100 players on the same server?
So 64 players is going to be the maximum for the server. DICE doesn't really feel like implementing, because when you increase the player count, you're going to have to work around the maps. You're going to have to build them to fit 100 rather than 64, and that's problematic in itself, especially when you want to bring those maps down to smaller game modes like Domination, TDM, and Defuse, Obliteration, stuff like that. So that's answering the player count question. But to answer the other question, which I've forgotten at this point, what was the first part?
Battle Royale.
Oh, the Battle Royale.
Battle Royale and Incursions. Those
Gotcha.
two game modes.
Incursions has been developed by DICE. It's been very hands-on with the community, or at least the competitive community. There are competitive players that have been developing it. We'll definitely see that return to Battlefield, Bad Company 3, and most definitely Battlefield 1, or Battlefield World War 2. I'm sorry. And Battle Royale, as far as that goes, it's not going to be a vanilla game mode from at least what we see in early development. It's not at all a game mode. It might branch off into a DLC, but off of the vanilla game itself, no, we won't see that game mode.
Okay, that'll probably make a lot of people happy as well, because they don't really want Battle Royale to infest Battlefield.
Absolutely.
You know, they're happy for DICE to make a different game, but not.
I think it's definitely just a trend that we see in the gaming community right now, where these Battle Royale games are kind of just becoming popular for right now. We'll see them maybe die off in like 2 years, but it's definitely a trend or a fad, in my opinion, at least.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you on that. I think it will die out after a little while. Well, that's fantastic. I mean, I'm happy with a lot of stuff that I've heard, and you know, I can't wait for DICE to announce something official so we can say that you're right again.
Yeah,
you have got quite a good track record with this.
I think it'll be really interesting as to what happened, because usually they show the gameplay off at E3, but they like tease it beforehand. So when eventually they announce World War II, I wonder what will sort of happen with just like the community reach out. I know that once I like reached out to my source and he got into contact with DICE LA or DICE Sweden, I know that once I announced the World War II game, a lot of the YouTubers in the community kind of just backed down. They're just like, okay, well, well, I'm not gonna say that's fake, because then it would just straight up be lying. I know that Westy kind of just like said, oh, it might be it, and he kind of just left it off at that.
They're in a very tricky spot, right? Because they can't say anything, because essentially they're not really employed by EA, but it's in their best interest.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I feel a bit of empathy for them, but at the same time, I'm like, come on, get some balls. I mean, just do it.
I think the biggest issue I have with it is not that they, like, I understand and respect that they have like this agreement with DICE and EA where they can't do this, they can't do that. I just find it kind of just disingenuous that they would lead on the community with like speculation videos. And I mean, they do have the right to have speculation videos. Just the whole gripe I have with it is you're not speculating if you know what the game is.
Yeah, indeed. Well, thanks for coming on, dude. I think that was pretty much what everyone wanted to hear. I hope to see more from you on your YouTube channel. I'm definitely going to be subscribed to that. I'm going to link it in the description and the comments, and it will be on screen at the end of this video. If you want to click on there, check out Almighty Dak. And yeah, I hope to hear again from you soon.
Absolutely. And on a final note, I did leak this game kind of early in development. I remember when I leaked Battlefield 1, it was around March. I think a little bit before March, maybe February. But that was around the time where we had more specifics, like the name of maps as they were set and whatnot. So I think around February, late February, we'll probably have the names of specific maps for the World War II game. And then we'll be able to share that for more validity when the game is actually announced and then evidently released.
That's super exciting. That's not even far away. A couple of months.
It's not at all. But you'd be surprised what 2 months makes in development time, especially when they're getting really close to tying it all up.
Yeah. Okay then, dude. Thanks for coming on, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.